Did you see the film?
And it's about to get problematic up in here. I don't give a fuck!
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man? Bro, I'm out, man.
What is your name? What is your name? What is your name?
James Maxwell, Dr. Ginger Hamster on the Twitter, and now on Minds.com, Cassie Jaye and the Red Pill. To give you a brief summary in case you haven't heard of the Red Pill, well, let's let Cassie explain it. Let's see how she got to her conclusions. Now, she's being interviewed on a show in Australia. What is this called? Sunrise, Weekend Sunrise. And she's being interviewed by two people, Monique and Andrew. Well, let's just say they're not very interested in hearing what Cassie has to say. Are you surprised about that?
If you wanted to make a film about the issues facing the modern man, why did you have to focus on the views of these extreme misogynists of the men's rights movement, people like Paul Elam? Why do you highlight men's issues by promoting men who minimise women's issues?
Well, you have to see the film to see why I interviewed Paul Elam, because I had been a feminist of about 10 years before making the Red Pill movie, and all my previous work was about women's issues or gender, LGBT rights, gay marriage, that sort of thing. I've always been interested in gender politics, and I came across Paul Elam's writings on avoiceformen.com, and I was shocked and appalled and offended as a feminist woman. And so I decided to make a film about a voice for men and the men's rights movement and the large scope of that, because no one had ever made a film about the men's rights movement before. And so I interviewed 44 different people for this film, feminists and men's rights activists. And, it's a very complicated topic when looking at men's issues.
It is, you're absolutely right. But it just seems to me that you don't really question their views in the film.
Did you see the film?
Well, we saw as much as we could because your publicist wouldn't send us the full thing.
I sent you the screener link actually to the full film.
But so we watched as much as we could, yeah. But
you could also buy the film on Google Play,
no,
Vimeo, and
we tried to do that and we couldn't.
Be that as it may.
Now, I'm no hoity-toity trained journalist with a degree from somewhere or anything like that. I don't even play one on the radio or on the TV or on the YouTube. But I do know that typically the interviewers will have some knowledge of what they're talking about with their interviewee. But they don't want to know, do they? All they want to do is believe the film about Cassie Jaye and all this and all that and Paul Elam and all these evil misogynist men everywhere. Because you notice what he says. Wow, why do you focus on men who just ignore women's issues? Nobody ignores women's issues. Men's issues are not brought up at all, mostly just by a few men's rights activists, some YouTubers. Now, as for whether you can get Google movies in Australia, I'll have to ask Lotus Wolf and Godbotherer 1. I'm pretty sure Australia is not it's not all outback with kangaroos and Ayers Rock. It's a pretty modern first world country. I'm sure you could probably get Google down in Australia. As a matter of fact, Bering has a video where he goes and he orders the film off of Google and he's in Australia. Link below. So notice this guy hand waving. You see that act of dominance there? Did you see that? Oh, well, be that as it may. He decided he wanted to cut off the conversation at that point because he was caught by the filmmaker herself on live television in Australia. So he puts the hand wave. You see, there's protests. The film is being pulled from places in Australia. Some movie theaters won't show it because of protesting feminists and all this stuff. And they keep bringing up statistics about, domestic violence in Australia. It is a problem. There's nobody questioning that. Nowhere in the world are we saying women don't have any problems in Australia? Of course they do. What Cassie Jaye and people who enjoy the Red Pill, and everybody should look at it, full disclosure, I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen enough of it, and I've listened to Cassie Jaye enough on YouTube to kind of get an idea of what the heck the film's about. Men's rights activists are aware there are female problems. We know there's rape, there's domestic violence, there's discrimination. There's a lot of things going on here. But what the feminists want you to do, and this is what they do themselves, and they do it all the time, if you discuss something other than feminist issues, you are somehow ignoring what they're concerned about, which is absolutely not true. Men do have problems. There's homeless, and you know the litany of stuff. There are real problems. Divorce, rape. I mean, this stuff is real, man. I've been there. I've done it. And that was 30 years ago. I can't even imagine what it's like today. There are real issues out there that are not addressed by the feminists. Feminists say, we're all about equality for all genders. Fucking bullshit. Bullshit. Now, a feminist like Cassie, she says she doesn't consider herself a feminist anymore after making the Red Pill movie. She certainly does believe in equality. I mean, who doesn't? Everybody does. Nobody is saying things are perfect. What we're saying is there are issues on the male side of the spectrum that rarely, if ever, get discussed. And Paul Elam and Warren Farrell and some of these other guys are bringing these things out so people can say, hey, yeah, there are problems here. Men have some issues we need to deal with. That, in the eye of the feminists, takes the issue off them because it's the women's. You see, women always have to be the victims. Men always have to be the perpetrators. If the oppressors are shown to actually have some issues, you see where they're going with that. They can't have it. They can't have it. It's just like white men are all privileged, right? All white men living in a shack in freaking Appalachia is privileged over a black man or a black woman in a big city, and they have a college degree and a job. You're telling me that white guy right there is privileged? Of course he is. White males are the enemy. If you start talking about issues that are affecting the coal miner in Appalachia, or the poor person living in a trailer park in Georgia, or whatever, or the homeless man, well, you're recognizing that, gosh, they're actually human. They actually do have problems, don't they? And in the mind of the feminists, that takes away from their control of discussions of the issues affecting women. You've got to demonize the enemy. You've got to dehumanize the enemy. That makes it much easier to go after them. They're not really human. No, they're all privileged. Ears, plug, finger. They don't want to hear it because it takes away from the notion that all women are oppressed and all men are the oppressors. We know this is not true. Just like all white people are not racists. Black Lives Matter would help you, want you to think that. Oh, all white people are racist. Look at Milo Stewart. All white people are. No, we're not. There are some, probably more than we would like to have, but there are some racists. There is no question. No one is denying that. Just like no one is denying that women in Australia and around the world have particular issues that are female. But when they say domestic violence, they say one woman every week is killed by domestic violence in Australia. That's a horrible statistic. But they never tell you one man every 10 days is killed by domestic violence in Australia. They don't want you to hear that, do they? Men can't be harmed. They are the oppressors. All the links below so you can look through this thing. Go watch The Red Pill. I think I might actually order it and watch it today or soon. I got to see this film. More so interested in the journey that Cassie Jaye herself took. From being pretty much a raging feminist to like, whoa, there is something going on here. And she claims she's not a feminist anymore. That would be worth the price of admission to see that change, that epiphany. James Maxwell, thanks for listening.